So members, message, money, movement, there's so much we can do. And when we organize with love at the center, we will change this world.
Welcome to the Practivist Pod, the practice of activism made practical.
Today we discuss continued attacks on free speech and how we saved Kimmel and our First Amendment, Trump's unhinged and embarrassing performance at the UN and on an escalator, and the impending GOP government shutdown.
And then Steve has an inspiring conversation that will give you perspective and hope about this dark time with organizing icon, personal friend of mine, amazing woman, Heather Booth. You really want to listen to this one. Oh, I'm Jessica Craven.
Oh, and I'm Steve Pearson.
Stay strong. It won't be long. We will build a better world.
Oh, hi, Steve. How are you?
Hey, what a week. You know, we were joking around about how, the Wednesday evening news cycle has not been kind to our podcast, but this week was crazy. Kimmel gets canceled. We all take to the streets. We all boycott Disney. Kimmel's reinstated, is already back on the air. All this happened while we were just, playing clips from our old, podcast. So, it was a great one. Hopefully everyone enjoyed last week's show, but, man, what a week. And you, I guess we could jump right in. Oh, shoot. I always forget to say this. Got to do some business off the top. By the way, we are on Substack. So please find us there, subscribe to us there, support our show there. It's really, really helpful. I think if we've learned anything, and this might sound self-serving, but it's really true, when we look at the attacks on our press, on free speech, on, how the corporate takeover of media has been complete with these right-wing oligarchs that own everything, it's really important to support independent media. Not just our show, but lots of shows. So, you can do that on Substack. We'd appreciate it. All right. Did the business and tied it into what we have to talk about, too.
It did. It was topical. It was good.
It was topical. You were out in the streets. How are you feeling about all of this?
I got to tell you, Steve, I feel, and I'm not alone in this. I think I've seen this in other people's writing or podcasts as well, but I feel we really hit a turning point this week. I feel really encouraged. What we saw happen with Jimmy Kimmel, and yes, there have been many before him who have lost. I mean, there's a long string of great journalists and political commentators, comedians who have lost their jobs. Something happened with this final firing, the sort of the brazenness of the approach, the FEC getting involved, Brendan Carr saying we could do this the hard way or the easy way. And America just kind of snapped. And it's a snap I think a lot of us have been waiting for. It's a snap I hope will continue. But we saw this incredible, immediate response. I mean, that happened Thursday night, right? I'm writing my newsletter Friday morning and suddenly it happened Wednesday night. Oh, right.
Right.
Thursday. So Friday, I get an email that there's going to be a protest that day at noon at Disney. I go, there's so many people. The energy is so incredible. And also, you know this because you go to a lot of protests. You can also judge by the horns, the cars driving by. Yeah. Sometimes you get a few honks and then you get some middle fingers, get whatever. This was like a deafening cacophony of horns the whole time. Everybody was so angry you could feel it. There were also a lot of guys out there. And, I feel that women are generally overrepresented at these things. Young guys, which you don't always see. It was fantastic. So I feel like people have finally sort of realized, okay, got to pay attention. This is getting really serious and intense. And also realizing the power of their consumer dollar in this moment. I read that 1 million people unsubscribed from Disney Plus in the 4 days after that announcement. 1 million people. Wow. That's a lot of money. And that doesn't count the stock dropping, the people canceling vacations. canceling Hulu, canceling ESPN. It was a hugely, I think, impactful moment and something we really should all stop and celebrate.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel the same way. I don't want to repeat everything you said because I just feel all of what you just said to my core. I think this was a turning point. We've been talking lately about these attacks on our First Amendment, basically how Republicans and Trump, right from the top, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, have been vilifying Democrats and using that as a pretense to try to attack the First Amendment and attack our right to free speech. And Pam Bondi, we talked about this last week, saying that she was going to come after hate speech, which is protected by the First Amendment, and then having to roll that back because of the backlash, not just from us, but from Republicans, from MAGA, from the Wall Street Journal, and all that. And this happened like on top of that when tensions were very high. But again, we saw Joe Rogan come out and say this is ridiculous to try to, and they did it, like you said, so overtly. It's like, Ted Cruz. Oh my gosh, we're aligned with Ted Cruz on this. I hate saying that phrase out loud, but
Tucker Carlson, Tim Dillon.
Yeah. So we've been looking in recent months at some holes in Trump's base that I have never seen the entire time he's been on the scene. He's always called Teflon Don, and he's got a MAGA base that just will justify anything that he does. If there's any pivot, then they justify it. Over Epstein, over attacks on our free speech, he's losing people. And he's underwater in the fundamental stuff. We'll talk about the economy and how terrible that is, and how his primary promise and why so many people actually voted for him this second time around was because he was going to bring down prices on day one.
Right.
He hasn't done that, but they certainly didn't vote for this. And what we've seen in other countries, and I'll kind of leave it here, the countries that Trump really wants to emulate, like the Russias and the Chinas and that where free speech has been stifled, and the press has been intimidated and all that. They've never really had free speech in those countries. They've fought for it. They've had a push, a pull, a struggle. But in America, it is the First Amendment. It is the foundation of our country that we have the free speech. That is what we were built on. So, what we're really seeing is that Americans from all political ideologies, no matter who you are or where you come from, they don't want this fundamental right threatened. And they saw it with Jimmy Kimmel, and Disney felt the backlash. And I want to give Disney grace, because whenever anyone capitulates but then comes back around, like, we need them. We need that move. We want to give them hell when they're doing the wrong thing, but we also need to give them their props when they turn around and do the right thing. So it's been a hell of a ride this week, but I'm feeling the same kind of real hope for where we are as a country right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not sure I'm willing to go so far as saying I'm going to give Disney grace. I think they did what they had to do for their bottom line. Yeah. And that's, it's really cynical that we've reached a point in our country where there's no fealty to a political ideology. There's no fealty to a set of moral principles. It is simply, obviously a corporation doesn't have moral principles, but its leadership can. But it's simply where do I get more money? It doesn't matter. I'll do anything. Just give me more money. And so it's sad that this is where we are finding ourselves, but the truth of the matter is, and then we can move on, but people on the left do have more purchasing power than people on the right. And this is something that once we really understand it, as I said in my video, we can become the most powerful lobbying force in the country. If everybody in the country decides together to boycott something, we can ruin any company. And we're showing it now. We've got a track record. So I like to see this common wheel where everybody's calling and canceling Disney. That is where we become suddenly a voice that politicians have to listen to. And I think Trump was really humiliated by this. He's just trying to distract and doing other things to sort of save face, but he celebrated this. He bragged about it. It was his doing. And then he got totally clapped back on. And I love to see it. I love to see it. He's not all powerful. He's that little man behind the screen pretending to be the great and powerful Oz. And when we all turn and fight back together, we defeat him. And when this happens enough times, I think that people will finally really understand there's nobody back behind that curtain. It's just an empty shell.
Yeah.
And
I love how I'm sure you probably saw Jimmy Kimmel's like everyone watched the opening monologue for his turn back, and there was so much great stuff that he said there. I thought he actually dealt with it really well. The right tone. He was emotional. He was
very
authentic.
Emotional.
And
that was grace. That was grace right there. It was graceful. He even gave credit to Erica Kirk, which I was like, well, yeah, okay, that's good. I mean, he did. He was, he really did. He was not overly. He was very, very, graceful.
Raw.
He was.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. Honest but I love how he talked about admitting, the ratings weren't great. But not anymore.
Yeah, I know. That was fantastic. They will be now.
This backfired. It will be now. Yeah, he was. So thank you, Trump.
It did backfire. I never watched Jimmy Kimmel. I was there in bed at 10:30 watching it on YouTube. I don't do that. That's not my thing. But you got to watch. It's not about whether or not you like his show. We just want to live in a country where shows like his are allowed.
Right.
That's
right. All. That was a great point that he made. And when this happened, and when the Stephen Colbert cancellation happened too, I said on social media that this is going to backfire spectacularly for the networks because they are struggling with a model that is not sustainable anyway.
Yes.
And shows like, Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, in this day and age, don't really need a network to get like you said it right now. You weren't watching it on ABC. You watched it on YouTube, I mean, that's where people are getting their news. That's where they're getting their entertainment. It's a changing model. And in terms of like the boycotts and the power we have, like if you really want to hit ABC, it's ESPN that you really want to boycott, because what's keeping networks afloat is live sports. And that's really it. So anyway, we don't need to digress any further, but I knew it was going to backfire. And just thank you everybody that showed up. I was at the press conference with Laura Friedman and a bunch of union members and a bunch of other Congress members on Monday in front of the Jimmy Kimmel Theater, and then got home to the news that he was back on. And, we did this. This was going to be my reason for hope, but we're just, talking about it off the top because this shows the power, as you said, that we have. And don't think for a moment that you don't have a voice, that you can't make a difference, because we can.
100%, and peacefully. That's a beautiful thing. And before we close, I would like to give a shout out to the unions, because they led this fight.
Absolutely.
And when I went to the protest on Friday, that was Writers Guild people. A huge portion of those people were Writers Guild people who stood in front of those gates for like 2 years during the writer's strike and did the same thing. These are people who they know how to throw down, and they did throw down because jobs were involved. Hundreds of jobs are involved as well. And censorship is something that the Writers Guild, of which I am actually a member, takes very, very seriously. I'm on withdrawal, but I am a member. And huge respect to the unions who led this fight and who lead, almost every good fight. So hats off
Proud
to the
SAG-AFTRA member here. Yeah. And one last thing about Jimmy Kimmel that people, since you brought up the strike, that people probably don't know. While they were on strike and the show was down, he paid everyone's salaries out of his own pocket. He supported that entire crew.
That doesn't surprise me at all. He's a really super decent guy. Super decent guy. That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, he's glad he's back on the air, and more people are watching him. Speaking of performances, of terrible performances.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, this is my segue into for those listening, air quotes, president's very presidential address to the UN. Which is the longest. You know, they asked people to keep it to around 15 minutes. He spoke for an hour, of course.
So inconsiderate. It's so inconsiderate. Who does that? Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, a narcissistic megalomaniac does it. And, he basically the biggest enemy that we have to face as a global community is the climate change hoaxers. And escalators that don't work, too. And he also complained a lot about losing out on a bid to renovate the UN building and how much better it would have been and cheaper if they had given that job to him. So, good times.
By the way,
what were your big takeaways?
Built by Robert Moses, the UN building. That's a great part of the story. You should all read The Power Broker. Great book. Anyway, any opportunity to mention anything written by Robert Caro, I will take. What were my takeaways? It's an embarrassment. That it's embarrassing that the world is appalled, and that from everybody I follow who follows all of these speeches, that was the most deranged and unhinged speech even he's made, and that's saying something.
It is.
He's in cognitive decline. He's never been that smart to begin with. And what can you say? He's an embarrassment. Again, this is an opportunity to talk to people who are not that politically involved and just sort of say to them, like, our reputation on the world stage matters. Like, what the rest of the world thinks of us matters. Doesn't it bother you that he got up there, he doesn't know basic geography. He recreated the map. He made up wars that don't exist. These things matter. I keep wanting to tell young people, this is not normal. We generally have presidents. You can disagree or agree with their politics, but when they stand on the world stage, they have gravitas. Every single one of them, even if I've hated their guts, this is not gravitas. And it is a huge disservice to every single American.
I forget the leader who said this, so it's not my words, and I should attribute my quote, but he is batshit crazy. That's what that's
probably
what they
said every leader there their some friend or spouse as they were text messaging. Oh my God, yeah.
But that's the message
crazy.
they got. That's the message they got, and like you said, these world leaders. I'm a nerdy enough kid to have done Model UN in high school, and I had the opportunity to go to New York when I was a high school student and do the Model UN competition. Actually, at the UN, it was really exciting and thrilling, and I took it very, very seriously, as did everyone there. And the the gravity of that building and the leaders that come together, the mission of the UN to as a world community to fight for peace and solve our common problems that humanity faces, and then just to see this batshit crazy orange oaf get up there and it's just embarrassing is too light of a word. It's deeply, deeply damaging. I don't know what other countries were expecting. So I don't know that it was really that they were like shocked by it, because I think they were expecting something.
Low. Yeah.
The bar was low.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. And he presents a vision of the world. I mean, I think the UN especially is so symbolic of like our common welfare. As you said, our common welfare. How can we work together to achieve, solve the problems of the world together? And Donald Trump represents the opposite philosophy in its extreme. It is the ultimate selfishness. It is me. It is what can I get? It's not just America first. It's Donald Trump first. He represents that vision, America first, but it's really just Trump first. And every MAGA is me first. And so you have all of these giant egos fighting for dominance, and no one is thinking about the common good. And you have this insane man haranguing on the stage, and it's sort of the logical extreme of the me first philosophy. Madness, idiocy, and the scorn of the rest of the world. And that's what Donald Trump has now gotten. And when we do get new leadership, we have got to go back to common welfare. We have to. It is the only way we all thrive. I don't know why this is so hard for MAGAs to understand. Rising tide lifts all boats. Yeah. What Donald Trump is doing is it's a hurricane on the sea. All boats will sink. It's very straightforward.
I love the rising tide analogy because it's true. And then also it's not a zero-sum game, just to remind all of our MAGA listeners, there's not a finite amount of pie to be distributed. When you give everyone opportunity, it creates more pies for everybody. So more rising tides, more pies, less batshit crazy rants at the UN. But okay, so we talked about what we did this week, coming together to save our free speech and bring Kimmel back. We kvetched a little bit about how crazy Trump is and this UN speech. Let's talk about what's happening right now with the GOP shutdown and what our role in that could be.
Well, that's a great question. And the first thing our role is going to be to call it the GOP shutdown every time we talk about it. The Republican shutdown. To really emphasize the fact that Republicans have full control. Senate, House, President. If they want to keep the government open, they should be able to do that without any Democratic input. But they can't, because they can't govern. And what is happening right now is that the Democrats put together a proposal. They were like, we will do a continuing resolution, but what we want in exchange is we want those ACA premium tax credits extended permanently. This will help 20 million Americans afford their health insurance. They said, we want a reversal of the Medicaid cuts. We want funding restored to public broadcasting. And we want some kind of guarantee that Trump and Russ Vought, the 2025 author, can't just come and yank back funding that Congress has already passed. They found a way to do it using a sort of backdoor method that's basically very dubious legality. And Democrats want that to stop because Congress is supposed to have the power of the purse. They are the appropriators. Right. When they appropriate money, unless the president vetoes that bill, that money's out the door. But that's not what's been happening. So these are the things Democrats are like, we want to keep the government open. We just want these things. And Republicans not only will not pass that bill, Trump won't even meet with Democrats. He's lied and said they want transgender. He's bringing transgender people into it again. There's nothing about anything transgender. And he's lying and saying they want $1 trillion of new spending. No, they want the spending back for Medicaid that we had before. And they want that appropriations money back that Congress had already voted to pass. That's what they want. So it's being misrepresented. It's really important that when you talk about this, you help people understand. Democrats, look, I don't love everything Democrats do, but right now they are fighting for our health care. And this is about rural hospitals, which are more likely to close if that Medicaid money really is cut. They're really trying to use the only leverage point they have to get that money back. And we should support them. They're not messaging it super well. Shame on them for that. But what they're doing is good. And we should really try to help them by calling Republicans and saying, get on board with what Democrats are doing. That's what we want. And then helping your friends understand what's happening.
Yeah, and the fact that the party that's in power right now, I mean, just the basic function of government should be to, serve your constituents, but at least listen to your constituents, get input from everybody that has elected these members to be there to do this work. And the fact that the Republicans are not even talking to the Democrats, will not even have conversations with them, and, are completely keeping them out of the room where it happens, right?
Right. But then they want their votes, but they want them to vote for it, but no input.
Right. Right. No input, no conversations, just vote for it. And I mean, it sounds silly and trite to say that's not how government's supposed to work.
No,
You
it's
know,
not.
people are elected. These members are elected and represent bodies of voters who need their voices heard. These are constituents who need their voices heard. These Republicans are once again disenfranchising them and not listening to us. You know, I voted for a Democrat. I'm represented by a Democrat. These representatives don't want to hear what I have to say or any of my neighbors. So they are constantly disenfranchising and doing what is unpopular. And the asks here are to save people's health care. As you talk about rural hospitals about to close, some have already closed. And we're seeing nursing homes go under in anticipation of these cuts. And, you know, the lion's share of these cuts won't happen, as we know, until after the midterms by design, but they're already feeling the impact of it, and more pain's going to happen. So Democrats, you know, they want to save people's health care. This is going to be the fundamental fight for the midterms, just like it was in 2018, is around health care. But anyway, so yes, message it the right way. It's the Republican shutdown. They are in power. They make all the rules. They have the ability to bring people to, and you know, bring some kind of compromise. Government is about, like, if a bill is done correctly, if a law is passed, then both sides should be feeling kind of shitty about it, right? Yeah, you know, right, because you're compromising, and someone gets what they want, but they don't get another thing that they want, and that's the way that it all is supposed to work. And Republicans won't even open up the door. So let people know, because you know there's a very real chance that we will have a shutdown, and of course the Republicans will try to, you know, blame somehow the party that has zero power in government right now.
Right. But if we can message it properly, this could be a really important moment for us. So do make sure that people understand what Democrats are bargaining for, what they're trying to get, because Americans are all very, very concerned, understandably, about healthcare, but they are probably not tuned into like a budget fight, which is not a super sexy, you know, it's not Jimmy Kimmel getting fired, right? This is much less publicly accessible, and yet it will affect every single one of our lives. Every single one of us is affected by the healthcare system taking a hit as big as the one that Republicans just delivered to it. Yeah. And so we should all be paying attention to this fight, because God, if we could get that Medicaid funding back, it could be life or death for you, me, Steve, any of us. Yep. So, yeah.
Great. Okay, so that's one thing you got to do. You got to message that and let people know what's happening with the shutdown. The other couple items we have coming up, October 18th, we'll keep saying it. This one is, I'm actually very encouraged that this particular No Kings Day is going to be the biggest one yet. It's going to be massive. I really feel, it feels like it's building. People are enthusiastic about it, but if you're not signed up, go to nokings.org and make sure you are. Tell your friends and neighbors, bring everyone out onto the streets. And then, of course, we have Prop 50 in 40 days. It's election day all over the country, but here in California, this is our chance to fight back against these egregious gerrymanders that dear leader has, forced upon these Republican states. They didn't really force it. They were pretty willing to do it, but this is our chance to fight back. That's what we want. We want to fight back. We want to see our Democrats fighting, and this will level the playing field. So we have a link for people to volunteer, donate, make phone calls. If you're in California, come knock on doors with us. 40 days. And then actually the ballots drop, I think, October 6th, which is very, very soon. Yeah. So those are some of your action items for this week. That's right. Jess, what's your reason for? I just saw it in the doc what you wrote for the reason for hope. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear about this.
I was going to do a political thing, and then I realized, okay, so on Saturday morning, I went to the Academy Museum, which is a museum here in LA. Wonderful movie museum, even if you're not a big movie person, which I am not, but it is still a delightful museum. And my friend told me that they were going to be screening Singing in the Rain on Saturday. And well, that would be really fun to see on a big screen, because I've never seen it. Okay, I've never seen it. I've seen that one clip of that one song. So I decided to go see it, and I have to tell you, it filled my entire weekend with such joy. It was so fun, so delightful, And I mean, so funny. What a wonderful movie. It does have a couple of moments that are weird and dated, but whatever. It came out in 51.
Yeah.
But it really reminded me of the importance at this moment of like getting off of the phone and out of politics and going and doing something that's just fun. That's just cultural and has nothing to do with politics and will lift us into a more universal space where dancing is wonderful and singing is wonderful and love is wonderful. And it really made a difference in my weekend. Also, if you happen to have not seen that movie, I mean, I don't know. I just never got around to it. It is really quite magical. But also just the importance of, as I keep telling people, like going out and doing something cultural or fun or just something not politics, and how important that is to the resistance, to our ability to continue to show up in this deeply dark time with a certain amount of lightness, because we are, as Heather Booth says, who you're about to hear from, and she's going to blow your mind, that we organize with love at the center. But in order to organize with love at the center, we have to be out, filling the well with some joy. So that's my reason for hope this week. What about you, Steve?
I love it. Well, I got to comment on that first, because first of all, we did talk about this with Heather Booth and, like how we stay resilient and what she does. And, she's in some book clubs and she finds community and she definitely unplugs and does stuff. And, I can't believe you'd never seen Singing in the Rain. That's okay. It's one of like the top movies of all time. And, of course, everyone knows the Singing in the Rain scene, but the Make 'em Laugh scene,
unbelievable.
That's the one. That's incredible.
It is unbelievable.
And I love that museum too. And I am a big movie fan, so that for me is really where I unplug at the end of the day. Like I, do all the work, do everything I can, and then I want to, and sometimes I'm not escaping. Sometimes they're politically relevant stuff that I watch, but I love just to escape too. And we earn it because we pay for that. We clock in every morning and do the work. Yep. So, anyway, I'll briefly say my reason for hope is we just got that special election. We got that last seat that we needed from Democrat Adelita Grijalva. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Grijalva. Thank you. Yeah. Adelita Grijalva, who won the seat that was held by her father, who passed away from cancer, from his fight with cancer. A large overperformance again. G. Elliott Morris said that it was around 20 points. We'll see how that adjusts. But again, another huge overperformance for Democrats in these special elections. She is the first Latina to rep Arizona in Congress, which is amazing.
Insane. How is that possible? But also how wonderful that we finally got it.
Exactly. So wonderful. And it also gives us the required votes for the discharge position to vote on the release of the Epstein files. So that will be coming up soon. I don't know if Mike Johnson's going to recess Congress again and send everyone home early, what he's going to do about that. But the vote to release the Epstein files will be forced onto him, and we'll see what happens. But it's exciting to see, all of this is exciting. The overperformance that we consistently are seeing is very hopeful as well. So.
And now I believe we're back up to our full numbers. So, as far as we have seats in the House. So now he can only afford to lose 2 votes on any given vote, which is great. It's going to make him sweat.
So tight.
So yeah, it's tight. So make sure you call your representatives and tell them. I mean, every Democrat is on board with the Epstein files being released, but if you have a Republican, call and put some pressure on them, because they will have to vote on this. What happens if it goes to the Senate? Whether Thune will even bring it up for a vote, the House Republicans are going to have to go on record voting for or against, and that is something that we can then really hammer them with. So call them and tell them that you will be watching their vote and you expect them to vote yes, or you will never let them forget that they voted to cover up a sex trafficking ring of children, which is what they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Poor Donnie. As much as he tries to distract, the Epstein files just aren't going away.
No. Nor should
Poor
they.
Donnie.
Oof.
All right. So anyway, that was a lot. Thanks for hanging in there with us. It was a full week, and as we said earlier, coming up now, you're not going to want to miss this really inspiring interview with our friend Heather Booth. Heather Booth is an organizing and political strategy icon. She has been an organizer, that's right, starting in the civil rights, anti-Vietnam War, and women's movements of the 60s and continuing through today. She's the subject of the 2016 documentary Heather Booth, Changing the World. Among her many, many roles, Heather created Jane, an underground abortion service started before Roe. She was the founding director of the Midwest Academy, training social change leaders and organizers. She was the training director of the DNC and the director of the NAACP National Voter Fund. The list goes on. She was the founding director of Americans for Financial Reform, the national coordinator for the coalition around marriage equality, and field director for Americans from Tax Fairness. What hasn't she done in this movement? Most recently, she was a director for progressive and senior outreach for the Biden for President campaign. She's currently a member of the consulting group Democracy Partners. Phew. Heather, it is such an enormous privilege to have this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, Steve, thanks for having this program that reaches out to the very people who are making the changes that we need to be made right now.
Yeah.
We are in such a challenging time in this country with an authoritarian, divisive, hateful, even violent rule.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to us. It's up to those who are listening or watching to know that if we organize with love at the center, we have changed this world, we can change this world, and we will change this world. So thank you, Steve, for providing this program. And actually, if I had any wits about me, I would probably stop now with that, that lengthy introduction.
No,
but appreciate
amazing.
That. There's one thing, actually, I'd like to add about what I am doing right now.
Okay.
And that is I work for a group called Battleground Alliance,
Right.
which is building coordinated campaign efforts in 38 marginal congressional districts. And I do want to encourage those who are listening in to think about how we convert the extraordinary, inspiring protest that's going around into power by building operations in those districts so that we can take back Congress and have a real lever of power in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's so important. And I'm not sure if you know, but I'm also the executive director of Blue Wave California, and our focus is those battleground districts in California, our frontliners and our red to blues. And right now, of course, it's all about Prop 50, getting Prop 50 over the finish line. So there's no more important
everyone,
work.
we need to support that. We need to send the money, make the calls, make sure that proposition goes through and that we win to reflect the real needs and interests of the people in California and around the country. It's a national issue. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, it's Prop 50 for a reason, because it affects all 50 states. And, I'll give it a plug, not planned, just to digress since we're talking about it. This is really a turnout election for our listeners or anyone that wants to get involved. The polling has been favorable on it. Like, we feel pretty good about what we're seeing from the polling. But the flip side of that is there is just a jaw-droppingly large number of people who don't even know there's an election happening.
Yeah.
Democrats who don't know there's an election happening. So it's a very rewarding thing to get involved in and to volunteer on, because people are largely in favor of it. You just need to let them know that it's happening and that they're going to be getting ballots. So anyway,
Well,
I said my piece.
really important. My understanding is we can actually make 5 more congressional districts in California to match the theft that's happening in Texas and Ohio and Missouri and Indiana and state after state, where they're changing the rules because they want to take away our health care. They want to raise our prices, all just to give the tax breaks to their billionaire and ultra wealthy friends. And they're doing that to us unless we organize ourselves.
Yeah. It feels pretty good to be fighting back, and I think that's what we all want to see. And I mean, you've been fighting these fights your entire life. You started your activism I believe when you were 13 years old. Before we get into some more stuff, because we kind of digressed, but I would love to know just how you stay resilient in this work. Where do you find balance in your life, if you do? What lessons can you share about building resilience? Because a lot of folks, with this constant onslaught are exhausted. And the notion of the practivist isn't just practical activism, but it's the practice of activism, like finding the space to be an activist in your life, wherever that may be.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Steve. And would love any of the tips and hints you've got too. But I'll tell you how I try to organize my life, sometimes less effectively, but how I try. First of all, one of the reasons that I say we need to organize with love at the center is we do need to have love and joy in what we do. And so for the work that I do, I keep thinking I'm going to retire. And part of me does want to just retire. I started at 13. I'll be 80 this year. And I really have kept up this organizing because I love this work. I love being with people, finding people find their own power by coming together and by making this a more just and equal world. And boy, do we need to do that now. So one is finding joy in what we do, but also it's who we do it with. I have 2 grown sons and 5 grandchildren. In fact, here's a picture of my grandchildren.
Oh, good.
This was a long ago picture. They're not much older. It's the one that I happen to have here. Oh, it's kind of a glare.
I love it.
But,
yeah.
I partly mentioned that, through the pictures and others are with me every day, but also friends and family. I'm in 2 book clubs. And
Oh,
even
that's
though
cool.
it's sometimes hard to eke out the time, I'm in 2 because they've become also life support for me. In fact, there was a time I had some surgery, but I wasn't able to walk, some foot surgery, wasn't able to walk for 3 months. And every breakfast, lunch, and dinner was brought over by either friends, family, or sisters and brothers from the book clubs. So, and then there's another set of people I go out. I'm in 2 theater groups.
Oh.
And so it's scheduled. Every month I know I'll be at the theater or the book club or go for walks with family and friends. And whatever it is you enjoy, whether it's pickleball or knitting or watching a movie, to make sure that there's the scheduled time and that you don't lose connection with people you care about. And I'd say even one more thing, and that is, it's not just for me, but for building those relationships. Every morning I wake up, when I wake up, I look on Facebook. It's the one time I really go to Facebook, and I see who's having a birthday that day. And if I really know you, and if I have your phone number, I'll actually give a phone call. And then you catch up. You find out what's going on. What have you done in the last year, or even more? Sometimes we've been out of touch. And so keeping that community together, caring for yourself, your family, neighbors, friends, and then building the broader movement to make this a better world.
Yeah. That's so nice. And I love the also advice of just like having stuff that's set, because that's the problem for me and my family is we're really kind of last minute people in general with our social plans and stuff. We never really plan anything ahead. And I tried to start a book club after Trump V1 with some of my family, and it kind of fizzled out. But I really love that idea. Also because I've got just a stack of books that I've read like the first quarter of, with a lot of it because I do this show. So I get sent the book and I try to cram, and then the next guest comes and I have to read their book. So anyway, that's just me. But I love that. And I think it's also really important for me, having the privilege of doing this work. I'm able to, like you said, at the end of the day, maybe just watch a movie with my family or go out with friends and set it aside, even though, we can't set it out of our minds, the dire, horrible things that are happening. But just knowing that I'm doing what I can to, do my part in this, in this world and leave it better than I found it. I'm able to do that. That just for me, that I'm able to compartmentalize a little bit. I don't know if that's the same for you, but everyone's a little different.
I really love that. I do think this scheduling is key. And in part, I think I do it even more now because I was married to a wonderful guy, Paul Booth, who was a leader in the student movement when we were young, and then a national leader in the labor movement. And he died 7.5 years ago. And after he died, I realized I'd be on my own and needed to ensure that I could schedule those times with family and friends. And actually, I have 2 lists on my desk here. Without exposing the names, I'll show you there.
Okay.
There are at least 2 lists. One is of the friends who I can call up. We make arrangements, and we put it on the calendar. Because really, it's your calendar that drives what you do. Make sure you create the time you want to create. And the other is a list of people who are in need or pain or frail or need a word of support. I try to touch base with them too. And
Amazing.
so we keep our circle, the circle of caring, growing. And what in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, we called it building a beloved community.
Well, that's a great segue. And you have obviously been on the front lines of some of the darkest moments in our history. I'd love to hear your perspective on how what you were experiencing during the 60s and 70s compares to what we are all walking through right now.
In some ways, these times aren't precedented, and we haven't quite seen anything like this, with the undermining of fundamental freedoms that we had won, even as we know we have to go much further. On the other hand, there are times that have affected parts of the population even more dramatically, with less hope, with less clarity that we could actually win and make change in the past. And because people took action with love at the center, we were able to make those changes. In the civil rights movement, I first connected with the civil rights movement in 1960, around the support for the sit-ins in the South at Woolworth's, which was, for those of the modern era, a store, I'll say like Target, that had lunch counters as well as sold food and wouldn't sit African Americans at the lunch counters in the South. And so I joined in support of that. I lived in the North at the time, and then connected with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the North called Friends of SNCC. And in 1964, there was a national effort to recruit Northern students to go to Mississippi and shine a spotlight on what was happening there, because courageous African Americans were being often tortured, but certainly treated without any dignity and respect, especially when they were trying to vote, because voting was one way we could exercise real power. And it was during that summer, I'll show you 3 pictures of it. Here's one picture. This is me at 18 years old. I often played the guitar for community gatherings. And this is Fannie Lou Hamer. Some of you may know her name, and if you don't know her name, you should know her name. And these are two of her friends in front of her home in Ruralville, Mississippi. I'm 18 years old, just the beginning of the Mississippi Freedom Summer Project in 1964. And she was a great, not only courageous leader, but she led from a moral clarity, and had a great impact on me and many others. Here's a second picture. Sorry about the glare.
Wow,
Again, at 18. This is a voter registration drive we're running. I'm just carrying a sign saying Freedom Now. What's interesting about the picture is it was taken moments before the first arrest I ever had. I wasn't doing civil disobedience, but the sheriff, who really was an illegal authority, was arrested us in order to stop the voter registration drive. And I learned that sometimes you have to stand up to illegitimate authority. During that summer, because we weren't able to do the regular voter registration drives, we then went to where people were, which is also what we need to do now. We need to go not just our areas of comfort, but where others are, and listen to them, talk to them. And here I am in a cotton field, again at 18, talking with someone to see if she'll register to vote in the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, because at that time, both parties were dominated by people who didn't really want African Americans and many others to vote. During the summer, and those who've heard about it probably heard about it because it gained notoriety when 3 of the young volunteers, Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, and Michael Schwerner, were killed at the hands of the Klan.
Yeah.
And it seemed desperate and maybe hopeless. How could you even change something where people could be killed? And it seemed like nothing would happen about that. But because people organized, within a year, we won the Voting Rights Act. And because people organized for almost the last 50 years, we have made strides towards greater and greater inclusion. And now there's a pushback on those precious victories. But we know that even when it seems desperate, when we organize, when we take our organizing to people for wherever they are, listen to them, respond to them, that's when we can win.
That's amazing. I mean, of course, many of us listening to this know that story, and you know, it's remarkable that you were there doing that and putting yourself at risk doing that. But I was reflecting. We spoke briefly last night before this interview, and you mentioned the organizing with love at the center, and I was really reflecting on that last night and this morning in that we are so ripped apart as a country. And I really believe the only thing that will bring us together is, one-on-one conversations, is actually meeting people, as you said, where they are, but not in group settings, because when we're in our tribal group settings, people are intractable and it's impossible. But when you're one-on-one with somebody, you can find common ground. And I just don't believe, no one thinks they're evil, right? No one thinks that they're the enemy. Like, I want to say that this is a clear fight between good and evil. In my mind, I'm very clear-headed about what our values are, what we're fighting for, and where our country needs to go. And it can very much seem like a simple fight between good and evil, because the actions are fascist. The actions of this administration certainly are evil, but I don't think human beings think of themselves as evil. And so, like, organizing with love at the center, to me, is really, really important, because when you try to meet people where they are, and I'm talking about everybody, like, I don't have space for hate. I don't have space for bigots. But this is also a learned behavior. People aren't born that way, right? There's a reason why Republicans are tearing apart education and isolating us from each other. So anyway, that was a kind of a long thing because I was thinking a lot about when you mentioned that to me. I would love to hear from you. What are your key lessons from your life in this movement, and what do you really mean, and how do you center love in your organizing?
I think it's when we act from our values, just as you've said, Steve. And the values that we have is caring for others, caring for having a world in which people have the fundamentals that we need to live: clean air, clean water, food we can afford, healthcare we can afford, and healthcare for all. And because right now so much of this is being taken away from us, they're taking away our healthcare. They're raising the prices on it. A friend of mine just went to get a COVID shot and was told it would be $250 as opposed to being just free, as it had been before, or not free, but paid for by our earned benefits that we have in a healthcare system that really can work for all of us, where there can be healthcare for all. But in fact, the government is now moving in another direction. And so I think you, listeners on your program, we're motivated by believing that we should care for each other and have a kind of society that ensures that people can live with dignity and respect. And when that's taken away, when that's threatened, we can act fiercely, sometimes with a fury, sometimes with an anger, but driven towards a beloved community, a future where we can all be together. And that's what the organizing is. And I think right now there's so many kinds of actions that are needed. I talk about organizing, and as an organizer, it's what I do full time. But whether you've got 5 minutes a week, or you're going to do it on Saturday, or when there's a national turnout, there's so many things to do. We just saw Sunday, the day many celebrated the sun on the weekend. Bill McKibben's group, Third Act, was spearheading that. On October 18th, there's going to be the next No King's Day. We all should be coming out for that. My understanding is they expect over 2,000 demonstrations around the country, and to feel our power of all coming together. There'll be actions on Veterans Day in November. And so every month there'll be different activities for large turnout. But I also hope we'll be setting up community conversations, talking to our neighbors, house parties, community gatherings, neighborhood fests. I think those will become part of the resistance plan that we see now too, so that we are building up our own beloved community.
Yeah. Well, you really epitomize why I got so hooked on this work. And I consider myself class of November 2016, right? So I'd always volunteered. I grew up in D.C. My dad was actually counsel to President Johnson and helped implement the Great Society and everything that's being ripped apart right now.
Thank you. And thank you. You come from good lineage. And we all need to pass it on.
Yeah. But for me, action is the best antidote for anxiety. And I was certainly feeling a lot of anxiety. And when I came into, as you said, this beloved community and found, this community of people who had joy, and you epitomize it too. The people who have been doing the work the longest, who I would think would be kind of beaten down and exhausted and cynical. Absolutely the contrary. These are the ones that hold the most joy in their hearts, because they know that, that arc bends backwards and forwards, but we just keep moving forward the best we can together. And it just brings me a lot of hope. And I feel really, really privileged to be in any kind of circle with you and folks like you.
Well, I feel the same way. And also, we should take heart from what we see around us. The majority of the country, right now, it's the overwhelming majority of the country, shares our concerns. The prices are too high. They can't take away our health care. They can't take away Jimmy Kimmel. They can't take away what gives us joy and comedy, and they can't control our freedom of speech. And when they try, it will energize us, and we see our numbers growing. That there were just polls out recently that Trump is down to 38% in favorability on some of the polls, and though they're all over, he's going down, and we are going up. And we need to convert that to both a social power and then to a political power. And they're on all sorts of special elections that have been held. The forces who are for a decent way of living, health care for people, utility prices we can afford, for freedom of speech, for greater democracy, those numbers are increasing, and democratic power is increasing. And then now special elections, these midterm elections coming up in Virginia and New Jersey, as well as there's a Supreme Court case, elections in Pennsylvania that's important, and the work in California that you're also connected to. All of these are important, and it's moving in our direction. But as Dr. King said, where the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards freedom, it's up to us to do the bending.
That's right.
And Steve, I appreciate what you do every day. You bend it a little by these podcasts. The people who are listening in or looking in should think about what they're doing and how can they do not only more, but maybe more with others and recruit others to this work. And I sometimes talk about, just in terms of people thinking about what can you do, sometimes talk about, to think about it as 4 M's, the letter M, and to think about members. How many more people can you recruit? Who are they? You're one person listening. What if you recruited 2 other people to listen? And we have 3. Could we get 4 or 5? Who will you recruit? How will you recruit them? But genuinely, members and message. What will we say? Right now, we can say there's almost going to be a threatened government shutdown because Trump and his cohorts and his regime won't even talk to others and instead are just raising our prices to give the tax breaks to their wealthy donors. That's what they're doing. That's what this is all about. We can send that message. Where will we send it? You're doing it through this podcast, and thank you for that. But will people send it on social media? Take it to your book club. Take it to your family meals. Send the message. The third is money. We're all asked for money, but can we ask others to raise funds? Give it to that, the amendment project in California, the Prop 50. They need the funding. Enormous funding is coming in on the other side. And not only to give what we can, but can you ask someone else for $10, $25, $50 and increase our financial support for this movement? And then the 4th M is movement. We need to show up. We've mentioned already October 18th coming up and other days of action. Or if there's an ICE raid, taking neighbors and friends. In D.C., they were just taking people off their mopeds who were delivering people through Uber Eats. Can we show up, take the photos, stand in solidarity, protect other friends and neighbors? I was in Rochester, New York a short while ago, and ICE showed up at a house that was being repaired, and there were roofers on the roof. And ICE showed up trying to take the roofers. They did take 1 person, but 100 people showed up on site. And ICE left. Now, that won't happen all over. but it's a way to show that we are in solidarity. So members, message, money, movement, there's so much we can do. And when we organize with love at the center, we will change this world.
Well, that was amazing. I kind of want to end it there. We always ask one last question, and you threw so much in there that answers that last question just now. So I'll just give you an opportunity to throw one more thing in there. What is giving you the most hope right now? I mean, you just said it. It's sort of a redundant question, and you give me a lot of hope right now. But
well, and honestly, you give me hope that you reached out and asked me to be on this program. It's not what I'm generally doing. I'm generally working day to day, but you give people a voice, and seeing so many in action, so many coming out, our numbers growing, our care growing, courageous actions growing, people developing more of a spine in some of these institutions and deciding that they will stand up, whether it's the universities or the law firms or the media stations. And when we come together in community, when we show we care for each other, when we show the true numbers that are the vast majority of this country that want a better world, we then can make our dreams become a reality. That gives me hope. The people listening into this program give me hope. And Steve, I'm so glad to be your movement partner.
Honored. Thank you so much, Heather Booth. You're amazing. Thanks so much for being here on the Practivist Pod today.
All right, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget that all the links for our actions are in the show notes. So don't just listen, click those links and take action. Please subscribe, rate, and review our show on Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts, and share our show with your friends and family members, and make sure they are taking action to help us win. And if you're able to support our show on Substack, we'd be very grateful for that, and you will get an ad-free version of our show as well. And we'll be back next week with more Practivist Pod, and until then, don't forget, hope is in action.